the dead of night. Deep within the treacherous, misty forests of Kodaikanal in southern India, a young man is surrounded by four thugs. The air is freezing. One of the men steps forward, looking down at the young man, and delivers a chilling ultimatum. Walk away from the girl and you live. Stay with her, and we erase you from this earth. The year was 2001, a time before social media, when love was measured purely by unshakable trust. Standing face to face with death, the young man named Prince Santhakumar looked his attackers in the eye and refused. He would never leave the woman he loved. Minutes later, Prince's desperate gasps for air faded into the silent forest. He was strangled to death, his body thrown into a ravine. But this wasn't a random mugging, and the man who ordered this brutal execution wasn't a cartel boss or a mafia don. He was one of India's most respected billionaires. A man with a global fast food empire spanning the USA, UK, Canada, and beyond. He was known to his millions of customers as the Dosa King. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a story where immense wealth, blind faith in astrology, and a deadly obsession turned a beloved billionaire into a ruthless mastermind. October 31st, 2001. Two forest guards were on their routine patrol in the Kodaikanal hills. Everything seemed normal until they stumbled upon something hidden in the brush. It wasn't an animal carcass. It was the lifeless body of a young man, wearing a blue checked shirt and a wristwatch. Forensics confirmed the gruesome truth. Clear fingernail marks and bruises around his neck. He was violently strangled. But with no ID and no missing person reports in the area, the trail went completely cold. The unidentified body was buried in the forest, and the case was practically closed. Police uncovered a missing persons report that matched the body. His name was Prince Santhakumar. But the real bombshell came from his grieving wife, Jiva Jyothi. She handed the police a 40-page explosive handwritten letter detailing kidnapping, relentless psychological torture, and a cold-blooded murder plot. And the name written on almost every page of that horrifying document, P. Rajagopal, the Dosa King himself. To understand why a billionaire would murder a humble math tutor, we have to go back to the beginning. Born in 1947 in a poverty-stricken village, P. Rajagopal had to drop out of school in the 7th grade to support his family. In 1968, he moved to the bustling city of Chennai, starting with a tiny grocery store. Rajagopal was deeply religious and had a blind, unshakable faith in astrology. One day, an astrologer gave him a piece of advice that would change history. Start a business involving fire. Taking this to heart, in December 1981, he opened a restaurant named Saravana Bhavan. In an era when eating out was considered a luxury, Rajagopal revolutionized the industry. He offered high-quality, incredibly delicious vegetarian food at a price anyone could afford. His empire exploded. Saravana Bhavan became the McDonald's of South Indian cuisine, opening massive branches in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and across Europe. But it wasn't just the food. Rajagopal treated his staff like royalty. He paid for their medical bills, their children's education, and even their daughters' weddings. To his thousands of employees, he wasn't just a boss, he was a god. They called him Anachi, meaning respected big brother. But absolute power corrupts absolutely. As his wealth grew into the hundreds of millions, his ego swelled, and his reliance on astrology turned into a dangerous obsession. He wouldn't sign a paper or make a move without consulting the stars. Already married, Rajagopal used his power to force an employee's wife to become his second bride. But his greed didn't stop there. His astrologer made a chilling new prediction. Take a third wife, and your wealth and empire will triple. Enter Jiva Jyothi. She was the 20-year-old daughter of one of his assistant managers. Her family had moved to the city to escape crippling debt, and the generous Dosa King had given them jobs, a home, and financial security. They were completely dependent on him, and Rajagopal knew it. He decided that this young girl would be his lucky charm, his prophesied third wife. He began showering her family with gifts, paying for her education, and calling her family into his office constantly. His paternal care rapidly morphed into a suffocating, predatory obsession. There was just one problem. Jiva Jyothi was already falling in love with her brother's math tutor, a kind and smart young man named Prince. When the Dosa King found out about this secret romance, his wrath was biblical. He fired her father, evicted the family, and sent thugs to threaten them. But defying the billionaire, Jiva Jyothi and Prince eloped in 1998. For a while, the young couple thought they had escaped. But in 2001, desperate for a bank loan to start a small travel agency, they had nowhere else to turn. They made the fatal mistake of going back to the Anachi for help. Rajagopal gave them the money, but with bizarre, cult-like conditions. He forced Jiva Jyothi to travel to remote temples and perform strange rituals. He fabricated medical records, falsely claiming Prince was HIV positive, trying to manipulate Jiva Jyothi into leaving him. When psychological warfare failed, he resorted to brute force. Rajagopal's goons surrounded their house. Prince was kidnapped, beaten mercilessly in a warehouse, and told to leave his wife. The terrified couple finally went to the police commissioner, submitting that explosive 40-page complaint. Sensing the danger, Rajagopal's manager, a man named Daniel, approached the couple. Acting as a sympathetic friend, Daniel promised to help them escape the city under the cover of darkness. It was a trap. Daniel drove them straight to a desolate highway where Rajagopal and his thugs were waiting. They threw Prince into one car and Jiva Jyothi into another. She was taken to a dark mystic's ashram for exorcism rituals. Prince was taken to the mountains, and he was never seen alive again. After murdering Prince, Rajagopal forced a terrifying, fake marriage ritual upon the traumatized Jiva Jyothi. But her unbreakable spirit brought his empire crashing down. When the police finally connected the dots, the Dosa King was arrested. The trial, starting in 2003, shocked the nation. It was a war of two worlds. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of his restaurant employees protested, crying for his release, calling him their savior. Inside, Rajagopal sat smiling, using his immense wealth to buy off witnesses and delay justice. But Jiva Jyothi stood entirely alone, facing down a billionaire, fighting for the man she loved. And she won. In 2004, he was found guilty. By 2009, the High Court upgraded his sentence to life in prison. Rajagopal fought the verdict with his billions for another 10 years, until finally, in March 2019, the Supreme Court of India ordered him to surrender immediately. But this story ends with a bitter, ironic twist. Just 4 days before he was supposed to be locked in a cage for the rest of his life, the 72-year-old billionaire suffered a massive heart attack. He died in a luxury hospital bed just days later. Despite being handed a life sentence for orchestrating a brutal murder, the Dosa King never spent a single night in a prison cell. The law technically won, but for Jiva Jyothi, the justice was hollow. A man driven mad by prophecies and power destroyed a family, took an innocent life, and escaped the cold iron bars of justice right at the finish line. Some stories don't have happy endings. They just leave us with a chilling reminder of what happens when a man has too much money and too little soul. If you found this case as mind-boggling as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the dark side of human psychology. Until next time, stay safe.